Most people believe a stroke happens suddenly and without warning. They expect dramatic symptoms that appear all at once. They watch for slurred speech or sudden weakness. But what if the first signs appear much earlier? What if the brain starts sending subtle signals first? Signals that seem harmless and easy to ignore. And that is where the real concern begins. Many adults over 60 dismiss small changes as normal aging. They assume fatigue or brain fog is nothing unusual. They blame poor sleep, stress, or a busy week. The problem is that some warning signs are not obvious. They can appear quietly and without causing alarm. That is exactly why they often go unnoticed, and most people never think twice about them. What makes this even more surprising is when these changes occur. Some people notice them before any major symptom appears. Others remember feeling different but cannot explain why. The experiences seem random and completely unrelated. Nothing about them appears serious at first, yet similar patterns show up again and again. And one detail connects many of these experiences in an unexpected way. Have you been waking up at strange hours for no clear reason? Do you suddenly find yourself wide awake in the middle of the night? Maybe you return to sleep eventually, but never feel fully rested. Perhaps your mornings feel heavier than they used to, or your mind feels slower even after a full night in bed. Many adults over 60 experience these changes regularly. Most assume they're just part of getting older, but that explanation does not always tell the whole story. Some people notice a strange sense of alertness at night. Others feel restless even when their body feels tired. They change positions repeatedly without knowing why. They wake up feeling as if they never were deeply asleep. The night passes, but true recovery never seems to arrive. Then the next day begins with mental fog and low energy, and the pattern quietly repeats itself night after night without any obvious reason behind it. You may also notice moments when your thinking feels slightly off. Not enough to cause alarm, but enough to feel different. A forgotten word here and there, a brief lapse in concentration during a simple task, a feeling that your brain is not as sharp as usual. Most people brush these moments aside without concern. They assume everyone their age experiences the same thing, but many people describe remarkably similar patterns. What makes this interesting is how these experiences tend to appear together. The nighttime disruptions often arrive alongside morning brain fog. The mental sluggishness often appears alongside unusual fatigue. The nighttime alertness often appears alongside restlessness. Each symptom seems small when viewed by itself, yet together they begin forming a much larger picture, a picture most people never recognize while it is happening. And that may be where the real mystery begins. The human brain naturally separates these experiences into different categories. Poor sleep feels like one problem, brain fog feels like another, fatigue appears to be something else entirely. Because they seem unrelated, people rarely connect them. Doctors often hear these complaints separately as well. That makes the underlying pattern difficult to spot, especially when the signs remain subtle. But what if these experiences are not isolated events at all? What if they are connected in ways most people never consider? What if the nighttime disruptions and daytime symptoms share a common thread, a hidden link that explains why they often appear together, a link that could completely change how you view these experiences? Because once that connection becomes visible, many things begin to make sense, and the next question becomes impossible to ignore. One warning sign many people overlook is fragmented sleep. You fall asleep normally, but wake up multiple times. Sometimes the awakenings seem random and unexplained. Other times you cannot remember what woke you up. The interruptions may last only a few minutes, yet the night never feels smooth or restorative. Morning arrives, but true recovery feels incomplete. and this is only one piece of a larger puzzle. Another commonly ignored sign is unusual nighttime awakening. Some people suddenly become alert at 2 or 3 in the morning. Their eyes open and their mind feels unexpectedly active. There's no loud noise or obvious disturbance. The body simply seems unwilling to stay asleep. Many dismiss it as stress or a normal part of aging, but when it happens repeatedly, the pattern becomes harder to ignore, especially when other symptoms begin appearing alongside it. Morning confusion can also be part of the picture. You wake up feeling mentally slow or disoriented. Simple tasks seem to require more effort than usual. It may take much longer to feel fully awake. Some people describe feeling disconnected for the first hour of the day. Others struggle to organize their thoughts clearly. The sensation often fades later in the morning, which makes it easy to dismiss and forget. Temporary memory lapses may also begin showing up. You walk into a room and forget why. A familiar name suddenly escapes your mind. You lose track of a thought during conversation. The episodes are usually brief and subtle. They don't seem serious enough to create concern. Most people blame normal aging for these moments, yet they often appear alongside other overlooked changes.
Unexplained fatigue is another sign that deserves attention. You spend enough time in bed but still feel drained. The exhaustion seems out of proportion to your activity level. Coffee may help temporarily, but never fully fixes it. The body feels tired and the mind feels heavy. Motivation becomes harder to maintain throughout the day. Many assume they simply need more sleep, but sometimes the issue may be something else entirely. Reduced mental sharpness and increased nighttime discomfort can complete the pattern. Thinking feels slower even during familiar activities. Concentration becomes more difficult than it once was. At night, the body may feel unusually restless. You shift positions more often than before. Nothing seems dramatic when viewed on its own, but when these signs begin appearing together, a different question emerges. What if they are not separate problems at all? When these symptoms begin appearing, most people reach the same conclusion. They assume it is simply part of getting older. After all, aging changes sleep, energy, and mental sharpness. That explanation feels logical and reassuring. It provides an easy answer for experiences that seem difficult to explain. And because the answer feels reasonable, few people question it. But what if that explanation is only partially true? What if something important is being overlooked? There is no doubt that aging affects the body and brain. Sleep patterns naturally change over time. Memory may not feel as effortless as it once did. Recovery can take longer than it did decades ago. These changes are well documented and expected. The problem begins when every symptom is automatically blamed on age, because once that assumption takes hold, curiosity disappears, and important patterns can remain hidden in plain sight. Think about how often people say, "I'm just getting older." They say it after a restless night. They say it after forgetting a name. They say it after waking up exhausted. They say it when concentration becomes difficult. Over time, those explanations become automatic. The symptoms are accepted instead of investigated, and the deeper question never gets asked. What makes this interesting is that many of these signs tend to appear together. Poor sleep is often followed by brain fog. Brain fog is often followed by unusual fatigue. Fatigue is often accompanied by reduced mental clarity. Nighttime awakenings frequently appear in the same pattern. The symptoms seem separate on the surface, yet they often arrive as if they're connected. That raises a possibility many people never consider. If aging alone were the only explanation, the pattern would be simple. But these experiences often behave in surprisingly similar ways. The same clusters of symptoms appear across different people. The same nighttime disruptions appear again and again. The same complaints show up in similar combinations. That repetition suggests there may be more to the story. Not necessarily something dramatic, but perhaps something hidden beneath the surface. The real question is not whether aging plays a role. The real question is whether aging explains everything. Because when multiple symptoms repeatedly appear together, they may be pointing somewhere. They may be revealing a connection that has not yet been recognized, a connection that could help explain why these experiences feel so similar from person to person, a connection that could change how these warning signs are understood. And once that possibility enters the picture, a new question becomes impossible to ignore. If aging alone does not explain everything, what hidden connection are we missing? Up to this point, each symptom may seem like its own separate problem. Poor sleep appears unrelated to memory lapses. Memory lapses seem unrelated to fatigue. Fatigue appears unrelated to nighttime restlessness. That is exactly how most people view these experiences. They place each symptom into a different category. As a result, the bigger picture often remains invisible. But what if these signs are actually connected? Imagine looking at individual puzzle pieces without seeing the image on the box. Each piece appears random by itself. None of them seem to reveal anything important. But once enough pieces are placed together, a pattern begins to emerge. The same thing may happen with these warning signs. The sleep disruptions, mental fog, and fatigue may not be isolated events. They may be different expressions of the same process, a process that remains hidden beneath the surface. One reason this connection is often missed is because the symptoms appear at different times. Some show up at night, others become noticeable the following morning. Some affect the body, others seem to affect the mind. Because they appear in different forms, they rarely get linked together, yet they often follow surprisingly similar patterns, patterns that become difficult to ignore once recognized. Many people spend years treating each symptom separately. They look for one solution for sleep, another for energy, and another for memory concerns. Yet despite their efforts, the pattern often continues. The symptoms may improve temporarily, but the underlying issue appears to remain active, which raises an important possibility.
What if the real problem is not any single symptom? What if the symptoms are merely signals? Signals pointing towards something happening in the background, something that affects multiple systems at the same time, something capable of influencing sleep, recovery, and mental clarity together. If that were true, it would explain why these experiences often arrive as a group, and why treating them individually may not fully solve the problem. The question then becomes where this hidden process begins. One clue appears in the timing of these experiences. Many of them seem to originate during the hours when the body should be recovering, the hours when the brain is supposed to restore and reset itself, the hours when sleep should provide its greatest benefits. If something is interfering with that process, it could explain a great deal. It could explain why the symptoms feel connected, and it could explain why so many people overlook the true source. To understand that possibility, we first need to look at what may be happening during sleep itself. To understand the connection between these symptoms, we need to introduce an important concept. We will call it the night mismatch. Night mismatch is not a disease or a medical diagnosis. It is a simple way to describe what may happen when the brain receives conflicting signals during sleep. Instead of fully settling into deep recovery, part of the system remains alert. The body appears asleep on the outside, but internally, some processes may still be acting as if they need to stay watchful, and that can create consequences that continue into the next day. Think of a home security system that never completely turns off. The house may appear quiet and secure. The lights are out and everything seems normal, yet the system continues scanning for potential problems. It never fully relaxes into standby mode. That constant low-level monitoring consumes energy over time. Something similar may occur during a night mismatch. The brain never receives a complete signal that everything is fully aligned. When this happens, sleep may look normal from the outside. You may spend enough hours in bed. You may even believe you slept through most of the night. Yet the quality of recovery can be very different from what it should be. The brain may not receive the uninterrupted restoration it expects. As a result, you wake up feeling less refreshed. Mental clarity may feel reduced, and the effects can linger throughout the day. This idea may help explain why some people experience fragmented sleep. It may help explain unexpected nighttime awakenings. It may explain why morning brain fog appears without an obvious cause. It may even explain why fatigue persists despite getting enough sleep. Instead of viewing each symptom separately, Night Mismatch offers a different perspective. It suggests the symptoms may be connected through a common nighttime process, a process that quietly influences how recovery occurs, even when a person is completely unaware of it. What makes this concept especially interesting is that the disruption may be subtle. It does not have to be dramatic to affect recovery. The brain is highly sensitive during sleep. Small interruptions in coordination can create larger effects over time. That does not mean something dangerous is happening every night, but it may mean the brain is not receiving the conditions it prefers for restoration. And when recovery becomes less efficient, symptoms can begin appearing in daily life. Symptoms that many people mistakenly treat as unrelated. The next question is perhaps the most important one of all. If the brain senses that something is not fully aligned during the night, it may not simply ignore it. The body has built-in ways of responding to potential problems, responses that are designed to protect and adapt, responses that can influence movement, alertness, and sleep itself. Many people experience these reactions without realizing what they are, and understanding them may reveal why so many nighttime symptoms feel strangely familiar. So if the brain detects that something is not quite right, how does the body respond? If night mismatch creates a sense that something is not fully aligned, the body may respond in a very specific way. We will call this response the body flip signal. The body flip signal is not a medical diagnosis. It is a simple way to describe a protective reaction that may occur during sleep. Instead of remaining completely still and deeply asleep, the body briefly shifts into action. The response may be subtle enough that you never consciously notice it, yet it can influence the quality of your sleep throughout the night, and it may explain several experiences that many adults over 60 report. Have you ever woken up and found yourself in completely different position? Have you noticed frequent tossing and turning during the night? Do you sometimes wake up feeling unusually alert for no obvious reason? Many people assume these events happen randomly. They rarely stop to ask why the body felt the need to move. But the body rarely wastes energy without a reason. In many cases, movement itself may be part of the response, a response designed to adapt to what the brain is sensing. Think of the body flip signal as a protective adjustment. When the brain detects that conditions are less than ideal, it may encourage change. That change can appear as repositioning during sleep. It can appear as brief awakenings. It can appear as sudden alertness in the middle of the night. Sometimes it may create a feeling of discomfort that disappears after movement. Other times it may be so subtle that the person never remembers it, yet the interruption still affects the recovery process.
This perspective changes how many nighttime experiences are viewed. Instead of seeing every awakening as random, there may be a reason behind it. Instead of viewing restlessness as meaningless, it may be serving a purpose. The body could be attempting to respond to perceived imbalance. It could be trying to improve conditions without conscious involvement. That does not mean every awakening is caused by the same thing, but it does suggest that some interruptions may be responses rather than accidents, and that possibility is worth considering. This may also explain why symptoms often seem connected. The same person who experiences nighttime awakenings may also report brain fog. The same person may struggle with daytime fatigue. Mental sharpness may feel reduced despite adequate time in bed. Sleep appears sufficient on paper, but recovery feels incomplete. When viewed separately, the symptoms seem unrelated. When viewed together, they begin forming a recognizable pattern, a pattern that becomes easier to understand through this lens. Perhaps the most surprising part is that the body may be trying to help. What feels frustrating could actually be a protective response. The body may be attempting to adapt rather than simply malfunctioning. The problem is not necessarily the response itself. The problem may be how often the response is being triggered. Because when these interruptions happen occasionally, recovery may remain intact. But when they begin occurring night after night, an entirely new set of concerns can emerge. And that raises an important question about what repeated disruptions may do over time. The real concern is not a single restless night. Almost everyone experiences poor sleep occasionally. The issue begins when night mismatch becomes a repeated pattern. The issue grows when the body flip signal activates again and again. What seems minor in the moment can become significant over time. Small interruptions accumulate across weeks, months, and even years, and the brain may gradually feel the effects of that lost recovery. That is why these nighttime patterns deserve attention. One of the first consequences may be sleep fragmentation. You spend enough hours in bed, but the sleep is repeatedly interrupted. The night becomes divided into smaller pieces of recovery. The brain never fully settles into its deepest restorative states. As a result, waking up refreshed becomes increasingly difficult. Many people describe feeling tired despite sleeping for 7 or 8 hours. Others feel as though they were awake all night, even when they were not. And that feeling often follows them into the next day. Over time, mental clarity may begin to suffer. Simple decisions can require more effort. Concentration may not feel as sharp as it once was. Tasks that were once automatic may take longer to complete. Words may become harder to recall during conversation. Short-term memory may feel less reliable. The changes are often subtle at first, which makes them easy to overlook. Brain fog is another complaint that frequently appears. Many adults describe a mental heaviness they cannot explain. Their thoughts feel slower than usual. Their focus seems less stable throughout the day. Some experience periods of confusion after waking. Others feel mentally disconnected until later in the morning. The symptoms may come and go, yet the pattern often continues beneath the surface. When recovery remains incomplete for long periods, cognitive strain may increase. The brain works hard every day to maintain normal function. Sleep is one of the primary opportunities for restoration. When that restoration becomes less efficient, additional stress may accumulate. Researchers continue studying how sleep quality influences long-term brain health. This includes memory, cognition, and overall neurological function. It also includes factors associated with healthy aging, which makes these nighttime disruptions difficult to ignore. That does not mean every sleep disruption leads to serious problems, but it does highlight why protecting recovery matters. The aging brain depends on consistent restoration. The more efficiently the brain recovers, the better it can perform its daily tasks. Understanding night mismatch and the body flip signal is not about creating fear. It's about recognizing patterns that may affect long-term brain health. And if these patterns can be reduced, an important question naturally follows. What would healthier recovery actually look like? The encouraging news is that the brain is designed to recover. Even later in life, the brain continues working to restore itself every night. The goal is not perfection. The goal is creating conditions that support deeper and more stable recovery. When night mismatch becomes less frequent, the brain may spend more time restoring rather than reacting. That creates an opportunity for better sleep quality, and better sleep quality can influence how you feel the following day, which is why understanding the process matters. Think about what happens when unnecessary interruptions are reduced. The brain no longer has to divide its attention as often. Recovery becomes more consistent from one sleep cycle to the next. The body can remain in restorative states for longer periods. Nighttime becomes less about reacting and more about rebuilding. That shift may seem small at first, yet over time, small improvements can produce meaningful changes, especially for adults focused on protecting long-term brain health.
This is why many experts emphasize supporting healthy sleep habits, not because sleep is simply about rest, but because sleep is one of the brain's most important recovery tools. Every night creates an opportunity for restoration. Every uninterrupted cycle allows important processes to continue. The more stable those cycles become, the greater the potential benefits. That principle becomes increasingly important with age, particularly when subtle warning signs have already appeared. As night mismatch decreases, some people notice changes in how they feel. Morning brain fog may become less intense. Mental clarity may feel more consistent throughout the day. Energy levels may become more predictable. Sleep may begin to feel deeper and more refreshing. The mind may feel more focused during routine tasks. Even small improvements can create noticeable differences that build gradually over time. Reducing unnecessary body flip signal activation may also play a role. When the body feels less need to react, sleep may become smoother. Nighttime awakenings may become less frequent. Restlessness may decrease. The brain may spend less time shifting into alert mode. Instead, more energy can be directed toward recovery. That balance is exactly what healthy sleep is meant to support, and it is something many people unknowingly move away from over time. The most important idea is that these patterns are not necessarily permanent. The brain constantly responds to changes in its environment and routines. Small adjustments can sometimes produce larger effects than expected. Recovery becomes more efficient when interruptions become less common. That possibility offers something many adults are searching for, not fear, but hope. And the most encouraging part may be what begins to happen when that cycle finally starts to change. After hearing all of this, it is important to remember one thing. These experiences do not automatically mean something is wrong with you. They do not mean you are weak. They do not mean you are lazy. And they do not mean your body is failing. Many adults blame themselves for feeling tired, foggy, or unrefreshed, but the reality may be far more complex than that, and understanding that difference can be incredibly reassuring. For years, you may have believed you simply needed more willpower. You may have assumed you were not trying hard enough. Perhaps you blamed age for every change you noticed, or wondered why your sleep no longer felt restorative. Many people carry those thoughts for years. They quietly accept symptoms they do not fully understand, and in doing so, they often miss a very important possibility. The body may actually be trying to help. The concepts of night mismatch and the body flip signal offer a different perspective. Instead of viewing the symptoms as failures, they can be viewed as responses that may be designed to protect and adapt. Responses that occur when the brain senses something is not fully aligned. That does not make the symptoms enjoyable, but it does suggest there may be a reason behind them, a reason that goes beyond simple aging or personal shortcomings, and that reason changes how the entire situation is viewed. This shift in perspective can create a sense of hope, because if the body is responding to conditions, conditions can sometimes change. If recovery has been disrupted, recovery may also improve. If sleep has become fragmented, it may become more stable. If mornings have felt foggy, they may begin feeling clearer. The brain has an incredible ability to adapt, especially when it receives the support it needs, and that possibility is worth paying attention to. Imagine waking up feeling more refreshed than you do now. Imagine moving through the day with greater mental clarity. Imagine feeling more confident in your memory and focus. Imagine fewer interruptions during the night. Imagine sleep becoming something restorative again, rather than frustrating. These improvements do not happen overnight, but they begin with understanding what may be contributing to the problem, and understanding creates the opportunity for change. The most interesting part of this story may still be missing. We have explored the symptoms, the patterns, and the possible mechanisms. We have looked at night mismatch and the body flip signal, but one important question remains unanswered. What is actually triggering this cycle in the first place?
Why do some people experience it far more often than others? And what hidden factor may be quietly activating these nighttime responses night after night?